friend. Welcome to Wild and Waking, a sacred space for the woman unraveling what no longer fits, remembering the truth that's always lived inside her, reclaiming her joy, her voice, her power, and rising fully, fiercely, and without apology. I'm your host, Emily Reuschel, and together we'll explore what it means to live in alignment, lead with soul, and awaken a life of abundance, authenticity, and purpose. Let's begin. Hey friends, before we dive into today's episode, I want to give a little bit of context for this conversation because it's a bit different than the typical Wild and Waking format. A few weeks ago, I had the chance to sit down with Andrea for a conversation on her YouTube channel. We originally connected through our mutual friend, Kate House, during her Goals with Soul Summit. Kate and I go way back. She's been a guest on the podcast before, and I actually had the honor of writing the foreword for her book. So when Andrea reached out and asked if I would come onto her channel for a conversation, it felt like such a natural and aligned yes. Andrea is a master life coach and an internal family systems practitioner whose work centers around helping ambitious, high-achieving women stop second-guessing themselves and start leading from a place of deep self-trust. After years of studying psychology, education, and human behavior, she's become really fascinated with a question that a lot of personal development spaces don't actually address. Why do capable, intelligent people still hesitate when it matters most? Her work explores the inner architecture behind our decisions, the protective patterns, the parts of us, and the unconscious beliefs that quietly shape how we lead, love, and build our lives. Through her coaching, writing, and teachings on self-leadership, Andrea helps visionary women reconnect with their inner authority so they can make bold, aligned decisions without abandoning themselves along the way. Her work really blends psychology, spirituality, and practical leadership in a way that helps women move from self-doubt into deep, embodied self-trust. Our conversation ended up being so good and so aligned with many of the themes we've been exploring here on Wild and Waking: self-trust, sacred rage, leadership, and the collective awakening so many women are experiencing right now. Then I asked Andrea if I could share it here with all of you as well. So what you're about to hear is essentially a bit of a reverse interview. Andrea is asking me the questions, I'm in the hot seat, and we dive into big ideas around what it means to trust yourself, step into leadership, and navigate this moment of collective change that we're experiencing. So if you'd like to connect with Andrea or explore her work, I'd linked everything in the show notes, including her website, her coaching, and the original video of this conversation over on her YouTube channel. All right, let's dive in.
Yay. Well, I'm so glad we get to have this conversation today. And I don't know, I'm just feeling lately like the standard podcast interview form isn't really my vibe. Relationships, deeper conversation is so juicy to me. So, and I also just trust spirit and wants to be here for the both of us. But I will start out with a little bit more structure and then we'll flow.
I'm here for it all.
Yeah. So recently somebody asked me in one of my social media feeds, why did you choose self-trust? And I was like, well, I didn't really choose it. It's my curriculum. That's what life said. Hey, Andrea, learn this and then teach it. That's what happened. And also it is this critical skill that most of us haven't learned. And so I've been tasked with teaching it. But it wasn't really a choice. So when I think about your work and Wild and Waking, why did it choose you?
Oh, I love that you say this. There's been a few times over the last year as, so much has been expanding in my business. And I'm trying to figure out what it means and what does this look like and what's the vision and what are we moving towards? And I'm like, why can't I just be passionate about smoothies? Why must I do such deep existential work in the world? So I feel that. And I bring it back. I started in my work very much focused on, personal growth and habits and goals and kind of more looking back, more of the masculine structure of what growth and expansion and personal growth looked like. And, I started coaching and kind of seeing this. I have my 6-week-old with me. She said, hi. I have lots to say, Mom. I was working with brilliant women who were so passionate, so self-aware in so many ways, trying to bring really beautiful visions to life, whether for their family, their community, themselves, their relationships, their work. And we just kept running up against what we call lack of confidence or imposter syndrome or, getting in our own way or limiting beliefs. And I kept sitting with like, why? Why are these absolutely brilliant, wonderful, impact driven women sitting in so much self-doubt, myself included? Like what's the through line here? And so it really brought me down this deeper journey of my own, mental health journey and therapy, exploring different healing modalities, and then really asking bigger sets of questions of like, where does this all come from? Because we're all turning it on ourselves, like something's wrong with me because I don't have confidence or because I'm struggling with imposter syndrome. And it's like, it's got to be so much deeper than that. And so that started asking much bigger sets of questions around, our family of origins and the systems in which we are raised, right? Everything from religion, politics, community norms, expectations, like how we define being a good mom, what good girls should do, how women should behave, like the patriarchy, and then you just start unraveling into colonialism and capitalism and all of this, right? And I just found this really deep systemic disconnection from women from themselves, and specifically the way that they know, love, and trust themselves. And so that really was kind of the ignition to expanding not only me as a person, but my brand and the work that I'm here to do from, here's these external accomplishments that I want to achieve and like, yeah, go girl, you can do anything, which I still believe is true, but also really helping women come home to themselves and deeply know who they are and love who they are from the inside out, not just, oh, here's my strengths and here's the beautiful personality traits that I'm proud of, but like I can sit with and befriend the depths of myself. And like I am whole and healing and content within myself. And I have this deep level of self-trust that comes with understanding my body and how I function and letting go of other people's expectations and even understanding where those expectations come from in the first place. And so it's this just ripple effect that goes so many different directions and is so deeply intertangled in every bit of our existence. And I'm sure that you resonate with this, and a lot of the women listening are. So many of the women I work with, and myself included, came into the world as adults, into the workforce, wanting to help people, wanting to make the world a better place, right? I was an elementary school teacher. And looking back on it, that came from so many good intentions. But for me, I can see now that it was also rooted in if I can do enough for someone else, then I will be worthy of love. Then I will be enough. Then people will like me. Then, has all these stories attached to it. And what I have found is so many women are in that situation in their own way, whether it's the way they parent, the relationships they have with other people, the way that they're doing business or their careers. But, when we start untangling all of these stories and starting to understand this disconnection from self that so many of us experience and start rebuilding that relationship, rebuilding the no love trust factor, and then we go out into the world so abundant. And it's like, we go back to you can't pour from an empty cup, but it's so true. Like when we are overflowing with sovereignty, and the way that we trust ourselves and the way that we move through the world and the way that we deeply know who and love who we are, it is a ripple effect. It's a lighthouse and it impacts our kids, our families, our communities, our businesses, the work that we do in the world and beyond. So that's kind of about where I'm at right now is like almost like holding the tension between this really deep level of self-discovery, not from a place of having to fix, but from rebuilding relationship and all the way out into, how does that help women come together then to change the world?
Oof. So good. So good and so well said. Do you feel like Wild and Waking was part of your soul curriculum?
Very much so. Like I said, I have been through, everything in my business is a mirror to my personal evolution.
Yeah.
And so you can look no further than my Instagram feed or my podcast, which has been running for almost 4 years now, and see in real time what conversations I was having, what I was exploring, what I was digging into, what I was inviting people into, what I was curious about. And so I have never felt more like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's always how it is, right? We go through these seasons that feel like walking through hell. And we don't understand what's going on. We're like, it feels like there's fire under my skin. I feel low key crazy. What is wrong? Nothing makes sense. When's it ever going to make sense? And then all of a sudden, it does. And you can look back 1 or 2 or 3 years later and be like, oh, I see exactly why I had to walk through that to be able to move forward in my purpose and to really click it into place in what makes sense in this season. And I think also another piece of that journey, just because I brought up purpose, is so often we're looking for it. Like, what's my purpose? What am I going to do forever? And, when I look back to so many different seasons of life, in every single one, I was living my purpose in my own way, right? Like, I don't think that we are meant to click into one thing that is the only thing forever. I think as we evolve and as we move through our seasons of life, like our purpose evolves with us. And so it feels incredible in this moment to be where I'm at, but it has been quite the couple of years to click that all into place.
Yeah, and that's the thing too that, like, I think people don't always see and realize is, like, you see this, like, highly successful, like, amazing mama sitting right here that is doing really cool shit in the world, but it doesn't just happen that way. There is so much inner and outer work required.
Hmm. Yeah.
And, that's the thing that I sort of see what makes coaches so amazing is, like, they've been through the fire, they've lived through something, and then they've volunteered as tribute to be like, "Okay, now I am going to teach this to somebody else so it doesn't have to be so hard." There's people that are brilliant academics and, have done tons of study and have learned all of the techniques, and that's incredible. But being guided by somebody who has lived it and has, like,
Hmm.
walked it and can be like, "Oh, I know, babe." Like,
Hmm.
I know.
Yeah. About this time last year, I was coming off of, my third was about a year and a half, and I was like, okay, I've been through one heck of a year. I'm ready to do something with it. And then just as I felt like it was coming together, I found out I was pregnant again. And it pushed me through, I think, the hardest death portal I've ever walked through. I mean, with no exaggeration, I felt like I was dying physically, mentally, and emotionally most of last year for this sweet little baby. And now looking back, I'm like, I completely understand why I had to go through that, because so many of the women who are, in the work that I'm doing right now are experiencing that in their own way. And if we're not willing to walk through the fire in whatever that looks like, we are so much less apt to be able to walk people through their own.
I mean, I love that I get to talk to so many people, and
Mhm.
because we get to do that, then I get to start pulling these, like, you get to start making comparisons, and it was like, so many people went through that same thing last year. Like, I
Mhm.
do for different reasons and in my own
Mhm.
way, but there was a massive ego death or, like, whatever you wanna call it, like,
Mhm.
dark night of the soul, I usually call it,
Yeah.
that was going on last year, and when we first connected, you had said something, I think it must have been in the foreword to Kate's book, Life by Design,
Mhm.
about, like, 2019 being this
Yes.
massive year, and I was like, "Me too."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so funny to see these, like, patterns in time, and so it
Mhm.
makes me think bigger, like, about
Yeah.
the collective and
Yeah.
bigger patterns at play here that, like, actually have nothing to do with us.
Yes. Oh my gosh. First of all, yes. And also, we look at 2019, and I know there were so many in that group of speakers who said, like, oh yeah, I started in 2019. And I remember when the pandemic hit, like I was kind of at the peak of feeling the best I had ever felt in my entire life.
Mhm.
And it was like, wow, I just walked through something insanely hard, and now I'm uniquely positioned to be a leader in this. And that's really when I started my Instagram in June of 2020, which was like such a time that felt uncertain for so many people, right? And now we're looking at this in real time right now. And I look at, for me, 2023, 2024, beginning of 2025 being this like really, really intense identity evolution that felt so visceral and hard. And even when I was in it, being like, I know that I'm in it, and I know that I can either pretend like this isn't happening, or I can welcome it with open arms, which is what I did. And, I live in the United States, which is in a unique position in the world right now without getting too in the depths. And I'm seeing so many people starting their own awakening of like, wow, everything that I have ever known or that I was told was true is crumbling in front of me. And I don't know who I am or what I believe anymore. And it's terrifying. Right. And so when confronted with that, there's some people who just like double down on like a belief system that they know is batshit crazy, but is fundamentally easier than doing anything hard. And then there's like an entirely different group of people who are like, I'm willing to walk in the unknown. This is terrifying. I need to know that it's going to be okay. And so I'm looking at this unique period in time and like all of this awakening and all of this crumbling and like this like roaring wildfire of systems that are not working anymore. And so many women being like, I don't know where to go, but I know that this isn't working. Like what happens next? And so, to your point of, being in a position of leadership during a collective event, it makes so much sense now why I had to go through that to be where I'm at right now to guide so many women in my community and beyond in what they're currently experiencing so that they can step into their sovereignty and their leadership to help rebuild something better or navigate for their families or their communities this time that is like very volatile and very scary, but is, I have no doubt, a critical moment in the span of, humanity, specifically in this country. And so it's just interesting to think about. I don't know why I was chosen for this, but I guess we're here.
I'm right there with you. Like, and my story is so similar because I went through, I was a teacher as well, went through a
Mhm.
brutal teacher burnout that just like crushed my teaching career. And I left in 2019, just like, I'm done. I don't know what's happening with the rest of my life. I don't even have the capacity to like forward to think about it, but this is done. And I spent a good like 6 months on my own healing journey. And then when the pandemic hit, I was like, feeling great. I
Yeah.
done the
Mhm.
thing. And universe was
Mhm.
like, that's what that was for.
Yep, exactly.
My
Exactly.
God. And so the first iteration of my business was supporting teachers who were burnt out and
Mhm.
overwhelmed, who were exactly where I had been the year before. It's absolutely wild. And so what I'm so curious about your work, because I know that part of your framework touches on or exposes sacred rage.
Mhm.
And because you brought up the systems breaking down,
Yeah.
which it is awful and it's so uncomfortable, and I can't watch the news because it shifts my energy completely and I am a disaster for the rest of the day. And to hold what's happening in the world right now, I know this is going somewhere good. I
Yeah,
know
I completely agree.
action is eventually going to be the crumbling that we all needed.
100% agree.
And when we're in it, it's the worst. So
Yeah.
how is your work around sacred rage the medicine that
Yeah.
needed in times like this?
It's so interesting you bring that up, and this really popped in my head as I was approaching the end of my pregnancy with her, is like, we're in labor. And labor is brutal.
Yeah.
And there's like this period of time where you're like, it's coming. I don't know what this is going to look like. There's so much fear. There's so much anxiety. Like, what's happening? I know I have to get through it. I hope it's going to be okay. And I feel like we've kind of gone through that. And then it's like you're in active labor and it sucks
Yeah.
and it hurts. And it's so hard. And you still don't know when it's going to end. I had a 48-hour labor with her, right? Like, this could be over tomorrow or this could go on forever, is what it feels like. And you have to remind yourself, like, I can't be pregnant forever, right? And then there's the ring of fire. And that's kind of where I feel like we're at right now. I don't know. Maybe it could also very well get worse. And you just know that something that is worth it and that is more beautiful is on the other side. I really do have so much trust and faith in that. And also, I feel, as I've gone through my healing journey, I started feeling, first of all, I started feeling that, let's just leave it at that for the first one. As a eldest daughter, chronic overachiever, doer of all the things, like good girl extraordinaire, I learned it was fundamentally safer, physically, mentally, and emotionally, to not feel bad things, right? Which I think a lot of women tuning into this can identify with. And so a lot of my journey was, first of all, just learning how to feel. And then also understanding, because I can't remember what it's called, but I know that you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like the ranking of like feelings in the human experience and consciousness. And it's like shame, anger, rage, blah, blah, blah. And it goes up to like ascension, blah, 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 whatever. And I remember doing a podcast interview once and asking her, like, if we're wanting to be in high vibration, but we're also supposed to be feeling our feelings, like, how this doesn't make sense to me. And she was like, oh, no, 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 no. To be a fully embodied woman, you feel it all and you experience it all, but you allow yourself to go into the depths, actually move it through and experience it so that you can, exist most of the time in like a higher vibrational state. And I'm there's probably a better way to say that, right? And it was like, oh, so it's not about just like pretending that the bad things don't exist. And it's not about suppressing the rage for the sake of love and light and ascension, right? It's like, if you are being fully embodied, you are accessing all of it. And I actually just did a podcast episode. It was one of those episodes where I got to the end and I was laying in bed at night. I'm like, did I say what I wanted to say the way I wanted to say it? Like, whatever I said, it's like bless and release into the world, right? But it was about the divine feminine and like the interpretation that we see of that, right? There's like this like very trad wife flair that you see flying around the internet, that it's like, oh, to be in your feminine, you're just, floating through the wildflowers in a floral dress, which, don't get me wrong, I love. I live in the middle of nowhere, like, great, favorite pastime, right? And it's like so just like soft and dainty and delicate and let someone else protect and provide, right? Which is so much of my journey has been softening and not being so hyper masculine in this hustle culture level of output, like reducing the hyper independence, like being able to receive and be nurtured. Yes. And also, like, to be in the divine feminine for me is also being able to access that rage of 1,000 lifetimes, especially at this period of time where so much of what we're seeing is literally on fire. And it's like, none of this is fucking worth it. Can you let the moms take care of it? Because we'll have this solved by next week. Right. And it's like, I'm seeing a lot of conversations rise about like rebuild the matriarchy. And what does that look like in practicality? Like, I don't know exactly, but like this focus on community care and women and children and, reciprocity and, the opposite of extraction and exploitation. Right. And I think part of what we are collectively experiencing, especially as women, not to make mass generalizations, but is like this rage of like, it doesn't have to be this way and it's not working. And we've been told to sit still and be quiet and be pretty and make babies and do those things so that we don't pay attention. And now that we're paying attention, we are fucking furious. I'm sorry, can I cuss on this?
Yes, swear.
Okay, great. We are furious. And it was interesting. I was talking to my friend the other day about this, in like the frequency of rage also. And she's like, well, unchanneled, if you think of rage as a fire, unchanneled fire is destructive. It's wildfires, right? It is destroying homes. It's terrifying, right? It's uncontained. It's really scary and doesn't necessarily do what you want it to do. But if we channel fire or we contain fire for a purpose,
Controlled
it's
burn.
sitting around a campfire, it's warming our homes, it's cooking our food. It's like really beautiful. And it's the same thing, but it's like the way in which it's being accessed and used is what's different. And so we were talking about this like collective, deep, sacred rage and being able to access that. And then where are you channeling it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's not, I think it can be really dangerous to feel the rage and sit in it and ruminate in it and like let it consume you. Like that's exhausting and it's so hard. And I think that's where so many people are at right now, rightfully so. Like we have a lot of reasons to be pissed right now. There's so much out of our control and there's so much happening where it feels like there's going to be like no repercussion whatsoever for the men who are doing it. And so it's like, okay, how can we sit with the rage? How can we allow ourselves to feel the depths of the despair and the rage and the anger and frustration? And then what are you going to do about it? Like, how are we coming together to do something about it and rebuild something better? And right now, I think there's this collective powerlessness that so many people feel, again, so rightfully so. But yesterday I was on a call with one of my group programs, and one of the women in it has a best friend who's going through some major medical stuff. And her and another friend put together a fundraiser for them in less than 3 weeks. And she was like, it was 90% women who showed up, both at the fundraiser to donate whatever. They raised $25,000 in a matter of, 3 weeks. And she was like, it was the women. It was the women who saw the need, who came together, who did something about it. And like, we won't talk about the fact, why does someone having a medical issue need a fundraiser? That's a whole nother conversation, right? But it was so inspiring to her and to the women in our group to see this like collective energy being put towards building something better and being in that circle of care and that circle of giving and showing up and community and reciprocity. And so that's where I think a lot of this work with the women I'm doing this with right now is like allowing themselves the permission to even feel it. Right? Because so many of us grew up in like a stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, go to your room until you come up with a better attitude, or like, I'm just going to be like, I'm going to withdraw my love until you change the way that you're expressing yourself, which I get it is hard. I have 4 kids, all of which who have like very expressive needs, right? It's so hard. But so many of us were taught that like those feelings equal you are bad, right? We feel shame for feeling the way we feel. And, I believe part of what is going to move us through the season right now is that channeled like rage and that being able to access like enough is enough and we're here to do something about it. And what does that look like? Like, I don't know. I think that's all on us to figure out individually. I think it's going to come from grassroots within. But I think so much of what is, rebuilding something better is women coming home to themselves, building that trust factor with themselves, like using the rage of 1,000 lifetimes to be sovereign and let go of these rules and systems and expectations and like, good girl conditioning to step into the leadership that they're already doing. Like they're already taking charge in every aspect of like functioning society. And I just feel like when we come together in that, like, women are so powerful. That was a really long side quest for your question about rage. But
I loved
here we
it.
are. Here we are.
I loved it. I was just like, I was cheering you on over here. I just resonated so much with all of it. That was so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we challenge the status quo, right? It's
Mhm.
feel the rage, not like the Instagram love and light thing, like,
Mm-mm.
drives me
I'm
bonkers.
about to throw my phone out the window if I see one more person talking about, like, ascending.
It's so misunderstood
Mhm.
because that love and light is only accessible when we feel it all
Mhm.
and get to experience. If we are suppressing the rage, if we are suppressing the shame, and for me in my work, those are parts. We're suppressing those parts. We don't actually have access to
Mhm.
our higher self. We just don't.
Right.
So,
Well, and when we numb those feelings, we actually rob ourselves of experiencing everything else to the fullest extent that we can,
yeah.
right? And I know a lot of people who are on specific medications talk about this. Like, yeah, I'm not depresso anymore, but I also can't feel joy.
Mhm.
Right. And that's like a whole nother conversation. But I think that we do that within ourselves sometimes of like, if I can't feel the bad things, then
Mhm.
I'm also like, I'm working so hard to maintain this like neutral that feels safe that like I'm not experiencing the whole range of the
Mhm.
emotions that humanity is meant to access.
Mhm.
And it's so, I have 4 young kids, and they know how to feel, right? Toddlers know how to feel. They kick and scream and yell and thrash their bodies on the ground, and then, like, 2 seconds later are totally fine. And we kind of make joke about it as adults, but it's like they are showing us exactly what you're supposed to feel it. You're supposed to somatically move your body. You're supposed to kick and yell and scream, and obviously not at the detriment of the people around you, but, like, you're meant to feel these feelings and do something with it so they don't stay stuck in you forever. And we just learned push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down, and then wonder why we have so many, autoimmune disorders and like physical symptoms popping up now, especially for women. I feel like in their like 30s to 50s are suddenly like having this explosion of all sorts of physical health things. And it's like, well, a few decades of suppressing every emotion that's ever existed has to come out somehow. And so, parenting has really been a model for me of seeing like, what does it look like to feel the depths of your feelings in the moment, let them move through you, and then like come out on the other side with like clarity and be able to just move right on.
I mean, what we're really talking about here, like, is challenging the status quo,
Mhm.
but not in a way that somebody might typically think that they need to challenge the status quo,
Mhm.
right? Like, when I think of myself as a disruptor or rebellious or
Mhm.
a nonconformist, 'cause I don't wanna do the thing that I've been told that I had to do.
Mhm.
And challenging the status quo is like giving yourself permission and having the trust in yourself that you can do it whatever way you want.
Mhm.
But also, like I'm hearing, feeling your feelings is challenging the status quo.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We were taught, go to your room, like exile the child as we exile the feeling.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, yeah, tell me more. Like, how can people start challenging the status quo? Doesn't necessarily require picking up a sign and going and
Mhm.
starting a march,
Right, right, right.
or a video on Instagram. Like, not everybody wants
Absolutely.
to do it. Yeah, in your wisdom, where do we start?
Well, honestly, I think a lot of it is reflected in the work that you do.
Mm,
I think it is radical in itself to rebuild your relationship with self in a world that has been created for our disconnection for a million reasons that we don't even need to list them all out, right? We have been systemically disconnected from ourselves and from each other. And so I think, the most important things that we can do is start that relationship of deeply knowing, loving, and trusting ourselves, and also repairing the wounds that we have around being in community with women. Because that's like a whole nother next level of it, right? Like we were meant to do life together. And we just absorbed all of this messaging. If you think of like every teen movie from the 2000s, it's like literally Mean Girls in 20 different fonts, right? It's like, she's my competition. She's out to get me. She's a terrible person. I got to take her down. And that permeates our friendships, our relationships, the work that we do, right? And so much of that comes from this very unhealed, insecure energy within ourselves and this like lack of safety we feel around other women. And so one of the most radical things I've done is heal that. And a lot of that comes with the relationship of self, right? If you are fundamentally secure in who you are, you're drastically less insecure around other women, right? but it's also like inserting yourself in situations, whether online or in person, retreats, communities, whatever, where like there is a unanimous agreement of like, we are doing this imperfectly, but we are committed to each other, right? It's very hard to do this work if you're the only person coming in with that mentality. Not that it's not equally as important, right? But it's like getting yourself into situations where like creating safety and sisterhood, it sounds like so cliche, like a book title or something, is like everyone's goal, right? And no one's going to do it perfectly, right? We're all going to mess up. We all have our own triggers and insecurities and things that come up, right? But when you come into a group, whether like I said, mastermind, virtual, whatever, where there is the unanimous agreement that like we are doing life together, it is so healing. And that's how we were meant to be. Like from the beginning of time, women were raising their kids together and doing the work of the village together and sharing stories around the fire together, right? And yes, that is not the day-to-day reality that we live in. But also, like, when you remember that that's how humans were designed to exist, and then we go and sit in our little concrete boxes and stare at small screen, big screen, and medium screen and wonder why we feel so frazzled and burnt out, it's like, well, go touch a person. Go touch grass. Like, go commit to putting yourself out there and being uncomfortable and, like, finding your people. And that doesn't mean that they are perfectly gonna check every box of existence, but it's like, I think that that is one of the most radical things that we can do right now. Relationship with ourselves and with each other
Oh
in
my.
nature, but that's a whole other conversation.
So I have this part of me that, like, at the end of every coaching call or every conversation, like, really loves for there to be, like, a full circle moment. And so this part of me right now is, like, jumping up and down, like, "Wow, this
Did
is how we
it.
started the conversation, making new female friends, and, like, here we are, you and I literally living and breathing this,
Mhm.
coming together, sister to sister, human to human, heart to heart, doing the hard thing and being like, "Don't do it to me on the internet," you know?
Uh-huh.
And doing exactly what you just said, and it doesn't need to be more complicated than that,
Yeah.
you
And
know?
it's like the willingness to put yourself out there, right? Like asking someone to coffee, asking to hop on a call, inviting someone over to play. And
Mm,
there doesn't need to be the expectation that every conversation you ever have is like, "Oh, where have you been my whole life? We're
mm,
perfect for each other," right? That's like playing into this, like, I think patriarchal notion that like we should have a partner that completes us, right? I have so many different kinds of relationships and friendships that fuel me in entirely different ways. And it's not fair to expect any one interaction to be like the representation of like our existence in the world. But if I think a lot of times we just sit and wait for someone else to come knock on our door and be like, "Hi, I'm the best friend you've always been looking for, and I'm going to validate you in every way and fill every need you've ever had. Like, are you ready?" And like, that's not how it works. You have to be willing to put yourself out there, and you have to be willing to walk away from a interaction and be like, like, I don't know if that was it, but that was a beautiful conversation, or I really learned something there, even if it didn't go the way I thought it would, right?
yes,
But again, that comes back to like feeling secure enough within ourselves to be okay with that. And
yes.
so, like, so many of my closest friendships now are people who used to be strangers on the internet.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it started with a message and went from there.
Oh,
How
so
we rebuild the world, whatever that even means. But we're in here trying to figure it out together. So,
yes, ask the moms.
ask the
Not a
moms.
mom, but I'm throwing myself in there because
Like, we would have it all figured out and on a spreadsheet by Friday.
I don't know if you might not have seen it, but there's this sketch comedy group called the Baroness Fun Sketch Show that is very Canadian. So the Canadians
Mhm.
might know about this, but one of their very first episodes, probably like 2015, there's like the four of them, and there's like this. It's like a G20 like summit or something like that, but it's all women. It's set in the future. And they're like just wrapping up the meeting and they're like, "Are you good? Yep. How's your country? Are you good? Yep, we're good too. We're good." And they were like, That just took a couple hours. Can you believe this used to take days?
Yeah, seriously.
It's just so funny, but it's so true. Like if you let the women figure it out, if you let the moms figure it out, done.
We'll be done. We'll be done. Yeah, I saw a carousel on Instagram yesterday that was like, there needs to be a mom in every like situation room. Like, and it was giving statistics on, countries and communities that are led by women and like the statistics, just like how they compare. And, I don't hate all men. I have the greatest husband in the whole wide world. We're looking at systemic stuff here, right? And it was just so drastic
Mhm.
how different it was. And I think to bring it back to the question you just asked, like when we rebuild relationship with self and rebuild that sovereignty, that's where we get to rise as leaders from this really healed energy that just pours out from a place of abundance. And so I do believe that that's a huge part of the better future that we're working towards. I believe that our generations and the ones around us have been called in at a time like this to go through this work to
Yeah.
be ready for what's coming. I believe that the souls that are coming into the world right now are coming in for a very specific purpose at a very specific point of time to be led by the women like you and I who have done this transition,
Mhm.
right? I really believe that like our generation specifically is kind of this bridge between like the old world and the new and
Mhm.
like the old ways of doing things and what we're working towards and whatever that looks like. And like that's why so many of us are doing this deeply generational healing, who are challenging these systems, whether from family, from generational legacy, from the way that we parent, the way that we take care of ourselves, the way that we think about ourselves, our relationship with work, like just there is not a person that I know that is not challenging something in some way, or at least not one that's like turned on and attuned, right? There's plenty of people going through the motions, but I think it's really intentional.
Mhm.
And so for anyone listening who is in the thick of it and is like, why? Why do I have to do this? It would just be easier if I did it. Why do I have to go to therapy? Why do I have to have a coach? Why do I have to be called for such a big mission? Like, can't I just not? I really do think there's a greater collective purpose in it. And I hope that in our lifetime, we get to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And also, I have made peace with knowing that I might not. I was really struggling with this towards the end of last year. And I think this comes from our like, okay, I see the problem. I want to have a solution
Mhm.
mentality of like, how do I fix the world single handedly? And my coach was like, that's not the point. The point is that you are a piece of the puzzle at this moment in time that is rippling out for someone else to carry the torch forward. And you may never see the end result, right? And like what's even the end result of this work that you initiate.
Mhm.
And that's okay
Yeah.
because your role is exactly where you're meant to be with the people that are exactly meant to find you in this season. And then they become the torchbearers for someone else, for someone else, for someone else. For think of all of these children that are impacted by the work that you and I are doing. And then the way that they carry that forward. Like we will never see
Yeah.
the end of the ripple effect, but I think it starts with women reclaiming their sovereignty and deeply knowing, loving, and trusting themselves and each other. There we go. There's our bow. That's the clip you pull for Instagram.
Oh, so good. Well, we just solved all the problems of the world, Emily.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say put me in charge, but actually, please don't. I'm just trying to make it through 6 weeks postpartum right now. Put you in charge. Call me if you need help.
Sure, sure. Ah, that was so good. I'm just like letting my body like marinate in all of what I was just here. Thank you. Thank you. And you have a podcast, you have Instagram, you host retreats, you coach
Yes.
women. What's the best way for people to connect with you right now?
Yes. Okay. Well, if you really want to see something that's active, I'm going to direct you to the podcast, Wild and Waking, formerly known as Gather and Growth. So you'll see a lot of episodes under that. And that's where you can really dive into not only my evolution, but I feel like really the evolution of so many women in my community. And we dig into all of this and so much more. There is no topic left unturned. Politics, religion, spirituality, intuition, purpose, untangling systems, coming home to yourself, like business, motherhood, like it's all there. It's like if it matters to me, if I'm curious about it, I'm exploring it. And thankfully, I have so many women who also have ADHD and many interests who are obsessed with that. And to me, it kind of feels like trying to put the puzzle together, right? I think for so long, we've kind of looked at problem solving in silos and like, I'm just going to really hyper focus on this thing and I'm going to fix it and then everything's going to make sense. And to go back to kind of one of your initial questions is like, that question of why are we so disconnected from ourselves? It's everything. So like I'm just having so much fun exploring so many conversations to help women make sense of where they are in the world and coming home to themselves and then where they want to go and what they want to do with it. So Instagram is my next primary platform. You'll see me the most active in stories right now. Content creation just hasn't been top of priority in this season of life. I do really love hanging out on Threads. You'll just see me yapping there about every thought that crosses my mind. So that's been super fun. But yeah, I would love to get connected. I don't know when this is going to be released, but I'm working on putting together a retreat over Beltane weekend called Bloom Fire that I'm really excited about. Really all about this idea of tapping into ourselves, into each other, and getting reconnected with the land and our intuition and creativity, and also being over Beltane weekend, like what does that fiery rage kind of look like? So it's kind of the combination of it all, which I'm really excited about. So, and I found a castle in Missouri, like the middle of the Midwestern United States. It's like 4 hours from my house, a full-on castle on 100 acres. Like, what? It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Ancestors had your back with that one.
Seriously. It's so cool. So, yeah, it's amazing.
Amazing. Thank you for being here. Thanks for chatting with me. Thanks for this little one who is just like an angel bringing her spirit energy to us today.
She is snoring now, so.
Okay, thanks, love. Thank you, everybody, for
Thank
tuning in.
you.
Go check out Emily, and we'll chat soon.
Hey, friend, I hope this conversation sparked something real in you. Something that feels like truth, curiosity, or the courage to keep becoming. If this episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it. Take a screenshot, post it to your stories, or send it to one of your friends. You can always find me over on Instagram at Emily Reuschel, where I love continuing these conversations and hearing your takeaways. Truly, your DMs are one of my favorite parts of podcasting, so don't be shy. I'd love to reflect and connect with you over there. I'm so grateful to be surrounded by a community of women who ask hard questions, sit in the discomfort of the unknown, blaze new paths forward, and ultimately come home to their wild and waking selves. See you next week.